An audio thing, right?
Yeah, it needs to
Oh,
be
really?
Hi, I'm Aaleia.
Hi, I'm Nameera.
And this is Operation Tomatometer. So as you can see, Nadia is unfortunately not here with us today, but be sure to stay tuned until the end for a special appearance by her later in the episode, where she will be introducing one of our new segments, which is super exciting. But standing in for Nadia today, we have our guest host. You guys might remember one of our executive producers, Elliot, from our vlog at the Sing 2 premiere.
Woo!
Hi guys, I'm Elliot, as Aaleia just said. I'm super excited to be here, finally in front of the screen instead of just behind it.
So I know everyone is ready to dive into another Tomatastic episode, but this is just a reminder to stop, drop, and rate the podcast.
That's right. So all you have to do is open Apple Podcasts, you search for the classics Operation Tomatometer, and you scroll to the bottom to review and to rate us a 5. We're already a quarter of the way there to getting certified on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's really exciting, and thank you to everyone who has already rated us.
5 stars.
And everything will also be linked on our YouTube bio.
So, if you haven't been living in a cryo chamber,
It gets worse every week.
then you probably know about Netflix's newest original film, Don't Look Up.
I don't even know what to say about that one.
So bad.
But yes, so a brief synopsis of Don't Look Up. The movie follows the story of Kate Diviosky, I believe her last name was, and Randall Mindy. Randall Mindy is an astronomer, and Kate is a PhD student. And Kate discovers a comet that's heading straight for Earth, and it's bigger than any comet that's ever hit Earth, and they realize that Earth's about to be destroyed. So they have to work together through a massive media tour to caution the entire world that the comet is going to kill everyone. But of course, people decide that they're not going to listen and that they're going to deny that this catastrophic event is going to happen. The film's cast features some of the most renowned celebrities. We have Leonardo DiCaprio as Randall and Jennifer Lawrence as Kate, and there's also appearances by others such as Meryl Streep as the president, Ariana Grande as another pop star, and Timothée Chalamet as Kate's love interest. And there was actually a budget of $75 million, and I think we can definitely see that in many aspects of the film.
Yeah, so that brings us to our next segment, Rotten or Not. And as our recurring viewers know, this is the time that we put our heads together to predict the critics' scores that those tomato heads back at Rotten Tomatoes have given to the film. So let's get started.
So what do you guys think the critics would have rated Don't Look Up?
I guess I'll go first. I can sort of see both sides because of course critics like to see these big stars in film, and obviously big actors tend to be good at acting, hopefully. But then again, there's also I feel like a lot of the messaging was very obvious. It was sort of, even though it is a comedy, I feel like it is pretty simple in terms of its messages. So I'm gonna balance it out and maybe go with slightly below my AP Psych average at a 70.
That was good. Okay, 70. I'm gonna actually go a little bit lower. I'm gonna say a 60, only because I feel like comedy is a very hit or miss genre in film in general, and I feel like the critics may have not responded as well as audience might have responded to certain jokes and moments in the movie.
I'm actually going to go lower than that. I'm going to say a 50.
Yikes.
It doesn't reflect my personal opinion, but I think that critics are approaching this from a different perspective than the audience, as we'll talk about later. They were probably thinking more about whether it lived up to the expectations of having such a big cast and everything about it, and maybe also thinking about, was it too mean, was it too cynical, was it too critical, and was it just too melodramatic maybe? So now will our lovely intern hand us the critic score?
Oh my god.
Wow.
55.
They did not like it.
Wow.
I mean, I was close.
55.
Oh my god, a 55. Yikes. I was not expecting that.
That is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really thought with this, star-studded cast, I thought it would at least get the fresh, if not certified fresh. But I do kind of see where they're coming from, Like I said, it was it was pretty obvious the comedy was kind of hit or miss. If I'm gonna, maybe that's just my opinion, but I can definitely see how critics didn't have the most consistent response with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I feel like comedy is very hit or miss. Like, some jokes delivers, others don't. I feel like critics may have thought about the premise of it a little too much and thinking about like how it's such a simplistic idea and how it was made. Like, yes, it might have been a little too melodramatic in that some of the actual comedy at its core just wasn't like genuinely funny. Sorry if you like the movie, but
So you guys didn't think it was funny at all? Like,
no. There were moments.
There were parts.
There were like bright
it had
spots.
moments, but you didn't consider it to be a comedy.
No, it's definitely
I think
a
it was
comedy.
a comedy that failed to be comedic.
I think it might have been a little spoofy at times, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It was trying too hard, I think, to make us laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the satire, while it's definitely hit or miss, I consider it to be very funny, and I was laughing
Really?
a lot, especially in the beginning. It wasn't even some jokes that I was laughing at. It was just like the premise or some things that were happening or what the characters' preoccupations were. What do we think the audience would have given it?
I think the audience would have given it like a 70. I feel like,
70.
yeah, I feel like that's kind of like a good middle ground in terms of like if you really liked the comedy, if you liked how some jokes were like delivered in like a really blunt way. I feel like there's a lot of bluntness, which I actually enjoyed that part. It had the best of both worlds in terms of like it looked great. It was great to watch. Honestly, I had an enjoyable time watching it, and I think that really complements the comedy.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of like in the same vein as you. I think I'm gonna go with a 75. Because I can see both sides, because, part of the message of the film is that, like, we're sort of, like, in a politically polarized society right now, at least, like, in America, where it's just, like, some people just blatantly, like, don't believe in certain things that they should. At least on a political metric, I feel like it would be controversial, or at least a little bit.
I'm a bit surprised that you guys went lower than
Damn!
I'm gonna say an 85. And,
Okay.
I mean, this film broke records on Netflix for the number of weekly viewers.
Wait, really?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Oh, that's-
it broke the record, and I think one of the reasons is teenagers. And as teenagers, we can probably understand this, that there are people in our generation, maybe even us, who appreciate the cynicism of the film, or just about anything in general. You go online, you see meme culture. The film talked about meme culture, and it was very accurate. It was a very accurate representation of that. And whether or not you think that it's about climate change, or that it should have been about climate change, or I actually thought it was more about the pandemic response. But we can talk about that later. So yeah, I'm gonna say about an 85. So now let's see what the audience gave it on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, alright.
78. I
That's
mean,
pretty good. I mean,
Yeah,
as compared
I got
to
pretty
the critic
close.
score. I mean, what would we give it though?
Damn.
that's tough.
A personal question, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would give it maybe 75 or 80, probably about what the audience score was.
Really?
Maybe 80. I have to think about it because I
80?
just saw it yesterday, so it needs to simmer a little bit.
I mean, as someone who, like, finished it, like, 1 a.m. last night, I think I can confidently say that, of course I have it's definitely simmered in me by now. So far, at least what I'm thinking is actually closer to the critics. I'm
Same.
thinking maybe a 60.
I think actually I'm leaning more towards like a 75 personally, only because like I like Adam McKay. I think that he has a lot of really great comedic films like Anchorman and like Daddy's Home and stuff like that. And I feel like in comparison though, this was not like extremely funny. I actually found like the improv moments were funny because I watched like a behind the scenes thing.
You guys are way too nice, I just want to say.
I'm interested in your perspective because I actually really liked it, and with the big budget, there were a lot of elements that they used that I found were interesting that gave it a much rougher feel to it. For one thing, the language. It could have easily been PG-13. It could have been like less
Boring.
Definitely.
language.
Yeah, I was thinking that about the beginning, because it's like such a contrast to the rest of the film. And I feel like there wasn't really much music. Did you guys notice that, like, at the beginning?
In the beginning. One other music moment was when the CEO of Bash, if we remember Bash,
Oh, no.
which was absolutely preposterous, but it was so funny.
That
to me.
CEO guy is just
I got something
so...
to say about him.
So he is... I mean, just like... I feel like that might be the best well-done character in this film. Arguably more than Leonardo DiCaprio.
I like
because they put so much of their comedic, like all of the comedy went into him, I feel like. Like, there were like obviously like the main things with him, just like, the way he talks, like this.
No.
But there's also, sorry to like,
No, you're good.
but I know this is like kind of a tangent, but he's just like, he's so like weird, and it's just he's eccentric because he's a billionaire, and weird billionaires are just eccentric, and it's obviously there's something like dark and morbid about him. And there's also just like subtle stuff as well. Like, you guys probably didn't notice this, but at one point in like the White House room, when he was like presenting about the new science whatever that wasn't peer reviewed, like when a lady stood up, he was just like standing there, and then he just like sniffed her.
Okay.
And it was just like, what? And it was just like little details like that just like add to how much we like despise, but are also just like weirded out by this character.
Okay, so I gotta ask you guys, like,
Mm-hmm.
who's your favorite character? Because there are a lot of like really standout characters in this movie. I have my favorite. I want to hear about yours.
Okay, again, creepy billionaire guy.
Okay.
Creepy and a billionaire. I don't think he's my favorite character, though. I think Timothée Chalamet, his character, I just want to say I kind of disagree with, like, how he was, like, introduced. Like, it was kind of just, like, randomly 2/3 into the movie. They were just like, oh, let's put another famous actor in here.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, but that being said, after he was developed, I honestly kind of liked him. I thought him and Kate were cute together. So maybe him. If not, I'll just go with like the main guy, Leonardo DiCaprio.
The main guy.
The main character.
Right.
What am I supposed to call him? His name? What is his name?
Randall Mindy.
Randall?
Randall Mindy.
I don't know their
Randall
names.
Mindy.
Okay.
Show
Anyway.
him some respect.
Dr. Randall.
Dr.
Randall.
Randall
sexiest
Mindy. Oh, I'm
scientist.
sorry. Yeah, because calling
Speaking
Leonardo
of that.
DiCaprio his name is disrespectful.
Wait, what do you guys think about like the movie's title being "Don't Look Up"? Like, because that was like the whole like propaganda movement within the film. And I think I just realized it's kind of like insane to think about like how like
It was
like,
the bad guy.
it's the bad guy slogan and not like Kate DiBiase and like Dr. Mindy's slogan.
Just look up.
Because
Yeah,
that's
just
what
look
it was
up.
about. It was
Yeah.
about the whole propaganda about not looking up. Because like Elliot was saying, it's about the issue not being political. The fate of the world is not a political issue. Politics is great. Politics provides structure in our life,
Of course.
right? But for certain things like this, for the world about to end, it's not a political issue. We also see this during that scene where they have the fireworks going off and everything, and the military, and they're saying they're going to save the world. There's just
about that
very ostensibly nationalistic attitude there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, nationalistic is a perfect way to put it. And I guess with that, like, what parallels do you guys see with, like, real life and, like, what's happening right now or, like, what's been happening in recent years with that? Because, Aaleia, I know you were talking about, like, how it sort of allegorizes itself with the pandemic, right?
Right. And, I mean, regardless of what your political views are about the pandemic or the government's response to it, I think we can see the parallels here, that people were turning it into a very political issue. And in a way it was, but it really shouldn't have been.
Yeah, and I think that like this movie just like packed in a lot of different issues, like on like a more like political scale. Like we saw like kind of like a court packing type situation going on with that one very interesting candidate. I will say that because
yeah.
there was like always new scandals with them, and then they got like knocked to the side. Also like nepotism, like with Jonah Hill's character.
Oh yeah, being her
The funniest
son.
the funniest character, my favorite character.
Really?
Well, yeah, he's so funny, so funny.
I actually like that they didn't go into that. Like, they didn't show people thinking, what am I going to do with the last few months of my life? They showed the last few minutes. And that was one of the most beautiful scenes that I have seen throughout this podcast. Because as the comet is hitting them, we're seeing shots from around the world. One of my favorites is that random dude on the mountain with a drum, and there's like the pieces of flaming rocks falling from the sky, and it's in slow motion. And we see other shots.
Oh, and then the big rock comes. Yeah, I know that one. That's so good.
And people are talking about their childhoods. They're talking. There are people panicking and running through streets. We're seeing shots of animals, and this one, it was really emotional because they started talking about how Randall likes his coffee. and they have literally 30 seconds to live.
For me, that part, I think what differentiated my score of 60 from a score of like 40 was just that ending scene, or that ending sequence. Especially, I didn't like the end credit scenes, but I think they could have ended it with just the whole family, you know, people who, like, love each other, you know, just, like, sitting around, having, like, now reunited, you know, just having family dinner.
Yeah, I agree. And, like, you know, like, when Dr. Oglethorpe, like, kind of came into, like, the house,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. I was like, yes. And, like, he just, like...
Love Dr.
I love him. His character is great. And, like, I personally I really respect, almost, and kind of, like, really, like, value the decision of not having, like, a happy ending. Like, the entire, like, premise of it being, like, neglected. Like, I liked how it ended, and it didn't have a happy ending. Yeah, so now I think it's time for Nadia's Notes. Nadia, take it away.
Hi everyone, it's Nadia, and I know I wasn't in today's episode, but welcome to a new segment, Nadia's Notes, where I'm going to give you a rundown on my thoughts on today's film, Don't Look Up. I think it has a lot of social commentary about our priorities as the human race right now. It's a one giant analogy, per se, what's going on right now in so many different instances, with the movie talking about this catastrophic comet heading towards Earth, and no one seems to care. What's going on in people's minds is these celebrity breakups, and then even how towards the end of the film it becomes politicized. It's science. There is factually a comet headed towards Earth, but people start taking sides. Don't look up, start pushing their political agendas based on a comet, when it shouldn't even be like that. And I thought that was very powerful, because that's going on right now with COVID. At the beginning of the pandemic, this should have been something that brought everyone together, and we should have banded together because it's science. It's a fact that this is affecting us. And then it became politicized with masks and unmasking and so on and so forth. But the unique spin I really appreciate is the comedy. Rewatching some Jojo Rabbit clips from 2019, which is a great film, you should watch it. Directed by Taika Waititi, and he brought up such a great point of how comedy is underlooked and underrated. People just brush it off as minimizing a subject because it's funny. But comedy is such a powerful tool in conveying these messages and wrapping these serious topics in a way that we haven't seen before. It's satirical, like a parody. At some points you're like, this is ridiculous, but it's what is happening in the real world. And for the movie and for comedic purposes, it's maximized, it's exaggerated, but it is at its core what is happening. I know not, an episode today, so I missed the Ron or Not segment, but I would, and I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know the actual score. I would give it, it's too hard to think right now on the spot, but I would give it in the 90s for sure. Maybe 91? Either high 80s or 91, I would say. I think it was definitely a message that needed to be heard, and it was a unique spin on it, and I appreciate that. So I was pleased, and I was pleased with how it ended. I'm glad that we didn't get a good ending because, again, it's just a message that if you're gonna not pay attention to what needs to be paid attention to right now, if you're gonna neglect and fail to do what's right now, you're not gonna get a happy ending. So I thought that was very powerful. So much for listening to Nadia's Notes. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Well, I think that wraps up episode 9 of Operation Tomatometer. So thank you all for listening to us talk about Don't Look Up.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Yeah.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Classic TV, and most importantly, to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Elliot for being our guest host for this time.
Thank you to Nadia for, contributing her own thoughts. Nadia's Notes.
And
could be a recurring segment. No.
Yeah, so this is Operation Tomatometer. Happy New Year, guys. Bye.
Bye.